good. Yeah, okay, I get it. All right, thanks.
Make
Peace.
sure the other one goes too.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll make sure I do it. So I think so. It says scheduled, so it's good then,
This
right?
is yeah. You should be good.
All right, cool. Peace.
Peace.
There we go. I think we're good. I think we're right. Let's get it. All right, so I think this will be cool. Yeah, it starts at 9 o'clock. What are you up to? What up, Tyler? All right, so we are live. I'm gonna be going live. Tyler, I'm gonna be going live on both things. All right. I'm gonna start that one in like 3 minutes. And if it doesn't go smooth, I'll just end the vertical one and keep this one going. Ted, how are we all doing? Everybody, please make sure to hit that like for me. It really helps out a lot. Let's go.
The debate is set to begin just minutes from now. It'll be the first time Harris and Trump meet each other, and it will be in front of the entire country. Tonight also could have a huge impact on the campaign. Less than 2 months out from Election Day with a tight race nationally and in the critical battleground states.
Let's go back to the debate hall in Philadelphia. The spin room. Tom Yamas is there. We're just about 6 minutes away now from the start of this debate, which we will carry in its entirety. Tom, are you starting to feel that buzz of energy?
Oh, you do? And guys, I will tell you something I've noticed that is different about this debate. Usually the spin room gets wild and crazy post-debate. What I'm seeing for the first time is pre-debate spin. You've seen surrogates on both sides sort of flank all the reporters, flank all the sets from all the different news organizations and try to get their message out. There was a ton of commotion about 10 minutes ago, and that's because RFK Jr. came into the spin room. Of course, he was the third-party candidate who has since endorsed former President Trump. He was followed by, I'd say dozens of reporters as he walked through the spin room. We're hearing kind of the same things. Both campaigns are disciplined. They are on message. The Harris surrogates are saying the same thing. Former President Trump is the most experienced presidential debater. This will be a 7th debate. And also, they want to go over reproductive rights, that a vote for Trump is a vote that will limit abortion access. And then on the Trump side, of course, they're hammering the issue that Vice President Harris is untested. She's only done one big major interview. She's doing no town halls.
Dude,
and also
I
they
swear,
want to hammer home that they want to put the spotlight.
Listen, I've known
it
my whole life.
on the issues of immigration, the
I've had
economy,
talks
and
with
the
Richie
two wars
about
overseas.
it. Like,
what I'll
what
be
if
looking for,
DG's
guys,
lying
tonight,
to us
who
all?
can truthfully answer the question that they are the change candidate coming out of this debate. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thanks very much. Our Washington correspondent, Yamiche Alcindor, has been covering the Harris campaign and joins us now. Yamiche, your thoughts tonight as we're just minutes away.
I could miss myself.
Well, one of the biggest challenges for Vice President Harris, as I've been talking to a lot of sources that are familiar with her debate preparations, are how she's going to differentiate herself from President Biden. Former President Trump is going to try to make her own every single mistake that he believes President Biden made. And there's been a lot of tension among the Harris Harris team about whether or not she should throw President Biden, under the bus figuratively and say, I disagreed with some of the policies, maybe even the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the way that it was carried out, or whether she's going to say, I serve at the pleasure of the president, and I agreed with everything that he did. But she has to, in some ways, really carve out what a Harris administration is going to look like and why it's not going to just be a third term of the Biden administration, or the second term of the Biden administration, rather. And the other thing that she's really going to have to do is not get pulled into personal attacks by former President Trump. They expect him to, at some point, maybe lose it. They're going to try to bait him a bit to try to lash out at her. But she really wants to remain calm because her biggest thing that she wants to do is really introduce herself to undecided voters and voters who might not be familiar with her background, her middle-class background, that she's a child of immigrants. They really want to, her team, really make sure that she defines herself. So that's also a big challenge that I'll be watching for, how she does that. Back to you.
All right, Amish, thank you so much. And let's turn now to NBC's Dasha Burns, who covers the Trump campaign and joins us now. What are you hearing from the Trump campaign about the preparations tonight?
Well, look, Savannah, you've heard the former president say time and again that he does not do traditional debate prep, that campaigning is his prep. But we are told by sources that over the last few days, he has been hunkered down at Mar-a-Lago. He's been doing extensive policy sessions. And watch for him to do two things tonight. Two things that his campaign wants him to do. Number one, tie Vice President Harris to President Biden. Make her own what's going on with the economy, what's going on with immigration. And number two, remind voters some of the positions she took back in 2020 when she was running for president that were left of center. Try to paint her as simply too liberal for those moderate swing voters in places like the suburbs of Philadelphia. Of course, that is the plan. That is what the campaign wants. But it's all going to be about the execution in the moment, especially if Harris tries to bait the former president into an outburst. Savannah.
All right, Dasha, thank you.
Let's bring back Kristen Welker and Hallie Jackson. I want to talk about how the vice president has cast herself in this campaign as the prosecutor, going against Donald Trump. Are there limits to that in this format, do you think, of coming off in a prosecutorial way?
Absolutely. When I've spoken to allies who are close to her, they say her biggest challenge tonight is getting specific, but not too specific. She's got to tell the story of how a Harris administration would differ from a Biden administration. That word we keep using. Change. How would she change things right now? Does she acknowledge to some extent that the economy is not where she wants it to be, and really lay out in more detail what she wants to see? Yes, she's going to prosecute the case against Donald Trump on a range of different issues. She'll accuse him of switching his opinion, particularly when it comes to the issue of abortion and reproductive rights. But again, she's got to walk that fine line.
But she also has to answer for some changes in her own positions. Of course, she ran for president in 2020. She came across and positioned herself as a much more progressive type of candidate. Now she's really moving to the middle here in a general election.
Crowded primary, right, back in 2019, 2020. She has moved away from that on issues like, for example, mandated gun buybacks for automatic rifles, something that she no longer supports. Fracking, for example, something that she has changed her position on as well. You look at Medicare for All, a position that she's backed away from. Watch for the former president to try to go after some of these issues. And I'll tell you, to bring it back to the voters, that panel with Kate Snow is super interesting. The economy came up again and again. And even though this summer, for the first time, inflation dipped below 3% for the first time since March of 2021, people don't feel great about it right now. So how does Vice President Harris address that moving forward?
And let me briefly go there and talk about his physical performance. It's been noted by many that the former president has tended to be more rambling, disjointed in many of his answers at a time that we were focusing on Joe Biden. Is that something that folks will be watching too?
He's now, of course, the older candidate now.
Okay, we will be back with you. It's the top of the hour now, 9 o'clock on the East Coast here in New York and in Philadelphia.
Internet's
the room where
probably
it's
too
about
shit.
to happen. We're just seconds away now from
Let's
tonight's
go!
first and perhaps last presidential debate
now
between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump.
As we've noted, this will be the first time these candidates have met in person, and it's happening on a debate stage. Also, the first debate since President Biden left the race over the summer and Harris became the Democratic nominee. A lot has happened in a very compressed period of time.
Yes, it has, and we have a few moments until the debate starts. We will join it. ABC News is broadcasting it, but we will simulcast it right here in its entirety. It's taking place at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia.
And like June's debate, there will be no audience tonight. The candidates' microphones will be muted while the other one is talking. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for answers. There will be closing statements, but no opening statements. So we expect them to probably mix it up rather early in this as they stake out their positions, and we get a sense of where all this is going.
And the mics are muted when the other is talking. So let's take you to Philadelphia now and the first presidential debate of 2024.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
You see, have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Okay.
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children.
Yes, she does.
My
for 50.
passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations.
That's not true. I
which
got more
will
back in
result
taxes.
in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the
I don't know.
backs
Things
of
were better
middle-class
under
people
Trump
paying
than with
for
her as
tax
vice
cuts for
president.
billionaires.
I don't know what she's
President
talking
Trump,
about.
we'll give
I
you
don't
2
care if
minutes.
they give
First
tax
of all, I
cuts.
have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
Oh, dude, I got back
And
more
the
taxes than I ever
tariff
got.
will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
You can't blame
Donald
COVID
Trump
on
left
him.
us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
No.
And what we have done
It's
is
not
clean
true.
up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us, and I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic, and the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in.
Yeah, they do. They want
Nobody's
you to
ever
think
seen
that they
anything like
don't,
it.
but they
We
do.
made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back,
There
and
you
it
go.
bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So
McKisser.
Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our
she don't
country,
know
if
what to
not
say.
the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy.
No.
What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country.
So I just looked it up,
and just to finish off,
Goldman Sachs
she
donated
doesn't
to
have
Kamala
a plan.
Harris this
She
year.
copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your
Sachs
tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her
didn't
well.
answer nothing,
But
Joseph.
when you
She never
look at
answered
what she's
anything.
done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before. He said the baby will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think is a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that.
This is what liberals
Her husband
do.
didn't want that.
Liberals use emotion.
A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term.
He just said he doesn't support the incest.
They don't want that.
He just said he doesn't support incest.
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban, because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter, because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to, because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free.
Yeah,
but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it, because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v.
I don't
Wade.
support abortion,
and as
personally, at all.
You rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to
you.
respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you veto?
Why is her mic on?
The question, would you veto?
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration
Why
and
would
border
she like to
security.
cut
We
him
know
off
it's an
like
issue
that?
that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border and helped those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
No,
and
that's
understand,
not true.
This comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch.
It's fun.
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter.
I love it.
He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
That's not true.
I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about
personal experience.
You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
Bro,
and I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. A lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Yes.
And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. Very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Why is she laughing?
You know, this
it's
is,
not
I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain.
You just named 3
including
rhinos.
the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people.
Yeah.
Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him. So he writes a book.
Fired.
Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far.
Yep.
In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow.
It's already
and
the
I
biggest
think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris,
please make sure to hit that like for me. If not,
every
it's all
one of
good.
those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal.
Yes,
and you
sir.
saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court.
Right.
I'm winning
She's
most
so
of them.
useless.
But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place.
That wasn't the question.
That
was not the question. That's not the question.
That the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
They are fake cases.
Someone who has
Everyone knows
openly
they are.
expressed
Even if they don't want to admit it, they know
disdain
they are.
for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
we do have a lot
that
to get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to, Lindsay.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed.
No,
so
don't
why have so
softball her.
many of your
Just give it
policy
to her.
positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager.
That's what I wrote down.
The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done. Protecting seniors from schools have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many billions.
About that.
And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah!
She went out in Minnesota.
Why are they
and
not
wanted
cutting
to
her
let
mic off?
criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis. She went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil.
President Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
No. You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask you.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason.
Well, not guilty.
But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page.
Yeah, away from you.
And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law. And to end the chaos.
It's so funny.
And to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath. If this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. He was talking about the automotive
industry and many
let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back.
So
Let's
right there,
chart
she's
a
lying.
course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up.
Yep,
I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide.
Dude, this is great,
in the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people.
So
let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace.
Yeah, General Milley's a
And
piece
when
of
you
poopy.
then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline.
What's up, everybody?
XL
Please make sure to
pipeline
hit that like
in our
for me.
country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm
President,
okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
You go to Biden and say, we need to stop this right now.
And also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza.
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, She hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a minute.
I don't know, man. He's smoking her, if you ask me. What do you guys think? I think it's pretty great so far. She's been super emotional. Dude, he was a lot more collective than I thought he was going to be. Market report. Okay. I'm lost. I think we're all lost. Yeah, dude. I don't think these debates are important. I just think they're more so funny to me. I think Trump's smoking her regardless, but I don't think that's saying much. Mexico said it paused debate of controversial Jewish rule. We'll see, bro. Yeah. Nope, that's rattlesnake wallet. Send me a picture of it. Did you buy it when you were in Colorado, or did you buy it in California, or did you order it? We're back in Festival. You just order it from the store. Oh, you ordered off of Etsy. That's cool. Wow, that's pretty sweet. I like that. Is it back on yet? Oh, it'll return in 19 seconds. I like it, Jose. That's nice. Oh, they must not have thrown me in the algorithm. We'll mute this. Unmute.
National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for $250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But You take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also, as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did.
Okay.
And as a result,
you didn't answer the question.
$300 million a day. We were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
Where
but
was
let's
the question
understand
answered?
how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago.
He just dogged her,
and
bro.
now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight.
I love that.
Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't.
I don't. They do.
I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has
I don't know, he seems a little bit calmer
over the
than
course
usual.
of his career.
Probably has a little bit of madness.
Attempted to
you
use
can
race
tell
to
he wants to
divide the
go off
American
on him,
people.
but he's like, I'm going to keep it cool.
You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us. And we
I've
don't
seen
want
Trump go off way more than
this
that.
kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they'd badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger.
Yeah.
But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly.
No, I love that.
Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has a plan to not allow fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to
President Trump.
No, the former president has said something twice that I need to respond to.
I'm sorry. We're going to move on, Vice President Harris. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in this administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something. I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that, and you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run health care system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, pass this prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or is being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate.
You worked 12 hours? Oh, my gosh. I can't believe you worked, bro. You're crazy. So what do you guys think of it so far? Dude, you're crazy to work that long while being sick. Ugh. Ugh. It sucks, dude. You should have just rested. I mean, I'm a gang. I see you, bro. I'll be right back. I'm back. Watching NBC channel and pushing liberal propaganda I don't care about the commercial breaks. I'm not listening to them. Shit. They push whatever the hell they want. Dude, I feel like Trump's smoking her. I don't know. She doesn't seem to be saying anything like usual. It seems like she's just saying a bunch of nothing. Wow. Back on in a minute. Dude, she's like literally saying nothing at him. Nothing at all. Dude, she's like said nothing that I heard, at least. Look, Trump pushes baseless claim. I mean, I've seen videos too. Maybe we're lied to or something, but I've seen the videos. Dude, this shit is hilarious, bro. He's been smoking her, dude. It's been so funny.
And closing statements.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
And welcome back to NBC News coverage of the debate. Pick your adjective. I would go with fiery to begin, but it goes from there. Both the candidates, you could argue, executing on their strategy going in. For Kamala Harris, that was to get under the former president's skin, which she did quite often. For the former president,
I'm just doing Kamala Harris facial impressions.
What was that all? And then the very stage, the very stage.
They had to practice, holding like this when he was talking. All of that was very.
Here's the thing: is that
she's a performer. A prosecutor is a performance artist.
We're going to be back in the chair live on Thursday. But when we go, we need to do a David Plouffe episode. What they did is they profiled Donald Trump. They found 20 triggers that they knew that President Trump was going to fall. Rally sizes was the first one. And from that point forward, it was this sequence that went one after the other.
Yeah.
She rehearsed her entire abortion thing that was full of nonsense about miscarriages, not being allowed to get treatment at hospitals. She made it overly emotional and then went against President Trump on that. Then from the beginning on the economy, we spent a lot of time on tariffs, like an unnecessary amount of time on tariffs. And it's very important to skip over all this like fake emotionalism and get to the core essence that Kamala Harris is the current vice president of the United States. She could have fixed so many of these things.
She is the second in command of a historically unpopular administration.
By every metric. And I think that could have been better displayed tonight, put on display.
For sure, for sure. Now, I agree with you, Charlie. They're going to frame it as a Kamala win, but I would say most of the upside, most of this event was upside. There was the possibility Kamala implodes and you're doing great. They were going to say she won no matter what. I don't think it's going to be a terribly big deal in the end.
I think this is going to be largely a wash. I mean, look, the talking heads are going to say, Donald Trump, but whatever. So here's the thing: is that this was a 1-on-3 debate. David Muir should be ashamed of himself.
That was disgusting.
He is, and by the way, can we get a list of all the interjections? And then the moderator woman, I don't know her name, but she doesn't deserve respect. But they were so.
She was better than Muir.
But I'm trying to just think off the top of my head.
The worst for me was when it was on the democracy stuff, and it was the democracy stuff,
Oh my
and he's
goodness.
just like, your campaign's legal advisor says that Donald Trump, it says like he's not recognizing the election. It's a threat. How do you? Or no, it's like he's trying to rig the result or something, or undermine the result. It's like, do you agree with that, Kamala? Like, just
so ridiculous.
Tee up, like, do you agree with this huge softball attack on Trump?
By the way, I have piles of hats here, and I just want to say you guys can become a member and get a signed hat right here and there. I want to thank Nathan, Christy, Jaden, Samuel, Arjun, Ricardo, Grady, Alex, Anthony, Ashley, Angelina, Will, Randall, Deborah, Alyssa, Zayden, Yekaterina, Kevin, Heather, and Frederick. Members.charliekirk.com. Members.charliekirk.com. I want to get our panel on this. Andrew, initial reaction.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with Blake. I think this is largely going to be a wash. I predicted it before. The media is going to fawn over this. I think Kamala gave the media enough that they are going to say that she was poised and she was, you know, absolutely. I agree with the fact that the moderators were, it was 3-on-1 the whole time. I mean, all of Twitter X is basically saying that in pure agreement on it. But it was climate change, guns, abortion, rally sizes, employees, democracy, the 2020 election. They went into the point of the questions were all in Kamala's sweet spot, and they were a setup for Trump. I would say Trump nailed it at the end. He finally got there where he said, you know, why haven't you done it yet? And that was essentially the entire debate. I wish he would have brought that up a little earlier, but at least he got it in that final segment. And that clip, I think, will do really, really well on socials. I would just say that it was a complete setup, a lot of intentional baiting and triggering. At the end of the day, I think when we talk about this electorally, this is going to be a wash. I don't think anybody is going to end up having a big bump from this. I think we're going to see this within 7 days. We're going to move on to a new conversation, new narrative in the news.
So, yeah, and look, Tyler, I want to get your thoughts on this. It's very clear that Kamala Harris received the coaching from David Plouffe and her team. Her team found 20 potential psychological triggers for President Trump, and she used every single one of them. It was a sequence, one after the other after the other. What President Trump, in my opinion, should have done and could have done an even better job of is twist and have triggers against her. The one moment that I thought was very interesting, where she seemed a little bit off kilter, was when he called her a Marxist. She didn't quite look very comfortable there, and they just cut it off kind of completely. Tyler, your initial reaction here.
Yeah, Charlie, Rush Limbaugh would have called this the drive-by debate. This was exactly what we talked about before we got on. Was we knew that the setup here was not going to be the same as the last one. The last one was a pretty fair debate with the questions, went back and forth.
Yeah, it was
this is why I said
I'm
really expecting this to be a complete setup where they're going to ask him and berate him. And so the preparation has to be good. He has to look calm, cool, relaxed, untriggered about stuff. And, you know, he just got attacked constantly. It was a 3-on-1 debate. And like, as we said, but look, here are the positive takeaways from this is that, you know, there are many elements within this debate where Kamala looked uncomfortable. She laughed a lot. She smiled a lot. She sneered a lot. Which just speaks to the way that she's uncomfortable in these situations, in these environments. I don't think those were exposed as much as they possibly could have been. Like you said, Charlie, that there should have been some preparation to be able to lean into that. So once he was able to identify that, but when you're sitting next to a person, you're not able to totally comprehend the same way that the audience is looking straight on at her face. And so, you know, I think the takeaway here is in debate number 2, which is going to be extraordinarily important, and I hope it happens, is that she's going to be uncomfortable, and President Trump has to remain focused on the very basics, which is like what we talked about here, is that Kamala Harris has been part of a regime that has caused absolute chaos at the border, that has allowed for our economy to spin out. After in a post-COVID world, we have inflation like crazy, and that simplified message just has to be delivered over and over and over again in almost a very boring, repetitious way. But with Trump being cool and collected and kind of the funny, likable self that he is, and I don't know if that all totally came through tonight. We'll see what the result is, but we've got our work to do to make sure that people hear that message, regardless of what the outcome of the debate is.
Yeah, and so just remind me really quick that we need to primary James Lankford. Like, how many times do I have to hear, oh, well, you know, you killed a bipartisan border bill? I mean, it is so nauseating, ridiculous, the damage that James Lankford has done to this country by doing that.
Totally obnoxious.
No, I'm not totally uncalled for, unnecessary. And so let's just kind of go through this. I want to play some tape here. This is President Trump on Kamala's
This is the chick that
flip-flopping.
does
She has no
Kamala Harris.
policy. Everything she believed 3 years ago. I'm going to send her a MAGA hat if she ever got elected. She's a Marxist. I think he could have pressed on this even further. And it was an interesting type format because it was very clear that Kamala was not adequately prepared on the substance, but she was adequately prepared on her 1, 2, 3 dance moves and her 1, 2, 3 triggers to try to get President Trump upset. Rallies, crowd sizes, staff around. Let's play cut 84, please.
That's very true.
I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later.
That's true.
Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
So Blake, you were commenting on her over-theatric
It's
response.
so theatrical. Like, just within that clip, if people were watching Trump instead, you know, but she's just like,
I know it was, but honestly, like liberal women like that because they're so over the top.
There's definitely a persona. You'll see this on TikTok or Instagram. The performative, like they talk like a TV character,
Yeah, like they're on Friends.
Yeah, not even on Friends. They'll talk. A lot of them will talk like they're the villain in a drama. Like, I mean, you had an encounter with one of those people in that 25. Where they talk like a psycho. And this shows they're fierce or they're tough or whatever. She wasn't quite going that bad, but it was very. It felt very, like I said, theatrical, rehearsed. I think definitely the whole like put your chin in your hand and look really confused. They almost certainly coached her on that exact position.
Or the kind of like look like this. It was so fake. It was so nauseating. She did not start well. She did not start well. Once she got Andrew into her coaching, it was muscle memory for her. It's very clear she's done nothing but for the last 2 weeks. When A comes in, say B. And it did not help, by the way. Can we have a full list of all the fact checks? Moderators are not supposed to fact check debates. Not once did they fact check her. Not once did they fact check her. Yet at least 3 times on the top of my head, they fact checked Trump. And the one that I just screamed at the television where she said, well, it's not legal anywhere in the country to have late-term abortions. In 9 states across the country, it is legal to execute your baby up until the point of birth and even post-birth, as articulated by the governor of Virginia. And so, Andrew, please.
And Charlie, when she goes into the Very Fine People hoax, they didn't even bother to fact check that, even though that's been publicized far and wide after the first debate, that it is debunked. It is totally false. So they were absolutely they were selectively fact checking this. And I mean, you could boil this whole thing down, and this is from Megyn Kelly, the great Megyn Kelly. She says, this is the ABC, who, by the way, who's moderated debates. So this is the ABC playbook, moderators. Mr. Trump, you did something or said something that was absolutely terrible. Aren't you terrible? Donald Trump answers. To Kamala Harris, would you like to weigh in on how terrible Trump is? Thank you. I mean, that really is
for sure,
basically the way this debate night went.
No, and it was so bad, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, the late-term abortion one is really what set me off. But there were 3 or 4 other ones. The other one with David Muir. President Trump, do you want Ukraine to win? Excuse me? Like, excuse me. The 2 or 3 different follow-ups on do you want Ukraine to win? He answered the question. We want peace. We want America to win, David Muir. We want this country to win, David Muir. And then when it came to, they were like, oh, well, let's stay on the topic of the economy. And yet when there were topics that Kamala Harris didn't like, she would constantly change the topic, and they would never regulate her and say that we are not on topic. Ever. Not once. It was obviously a 1-on-3 debate. ABC News completely in the bag.
Let's, have you guys seen this chick? She does Kamala Harris really good.
Time for my jam. So y'all know how they have those, white cups, white lids in Starbucks? And, I'm gonna speak. I'm gonna say it, right? So, they have those lids. And, if you're the only woman and you're wearing lipstick, I'm in that meeting and I gotta, put the cup down, gotta take off the lid, I gotta drink it. Like, it's a whole big thing. And, so you know what I said? I said, can we do something about the color of this lid? Can we do something?
Hi guys, Esty here. I hope you're still laughing and I hope you had as much fun watching that as I did making it. I did want to preface this and say that comedy is protected under the First Amendment currently of the Constitution.
That's true. She does some pretty funny ones.
From ABC News, from the leadership that is very close to Kamala Harris, as you point out, Megan.
Let's see, who else is live?
Saying, okay, Trump could have done better, right? I understand that. But to say that Kamala Harris did a spectacular job is just not true. It's not true, right? So I don't agree with that.
Because there was a lot of buildup to this moment.
Yeah.
There was a lot of buildup. The question is, how many people watched for how long? And how much did it move this race? Because it's as tight a race as we have ever seen in this country.
Yeah,
and last time we sat here, Joe Biden was running against President Trump. So who knows what's going to happen next. Thank you all for...
Did something great for every parent.
I'm just going to go watch. Yeah, I'm going to do what he's doing. See what CNN's talking about. They're not live right now? Really? Okay. I thought for sure CNN would be live right now.
As a potential president, that's what she needed to accomplish tonight. Trump better get to work or he's going to lose this election.
No.
Characteristically blunt assessment from Governor Chris Christie. Thank you, Governor. Mary?
All right, let's go to former DNC Chair Donna Brazile.
He's
So,
a
Donna,
pig.
you have certainly studied many a debate in your career. How does this one compare?
I think it was one of the best debate performances I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot, and I've helped a lot of people prepare for these big moments. She met the moment. She seized the opportunity to tell the American people what she would do during her 4 years. She commanded the issues, and she did not allow the former president to bait her. Instead, she led the way forward. She turned the page, and I think this race is about to get even more interesting now.
We will see if it moves the needle, Donna. Thank you.
All right, over to the other side now. Former RNC Chair Reince Priebus. All right, Reince, the Harris campaign says they want another debate. If you were advising the Trump campaign, would you tell them to do it?
Sure, I would tell him to do it. And the reason is like I said before, Donald Trump's numbers just don't move. I mean, the reality tonight, I know Donna's excited, but the truth is Kamala Harris didn't address the most important thing that the American people care about, which is the economy and the cost of living. She had no answers on immigration. She had no answers when she was asked about defunding the police. She had nothing to say about the families that were lost in Afghanistan, which was a true layup. She should have been fact-checked a lot more on some of the things she said in regard to this comment about a bloodbath, which was about the auto industry. So, look, I think a lot of things were not said tonight that she needed to say in order to move the numbers, and I don't think Donald Trump's numbers move at all. They haven't moved at all for months.
Reince Priebus, Donna Brazile, both thank you for your time.
All right, well, I got to say, again, what a incredible debate, consequential debate, no doubt. I don't know how many votes will actually be moved. I don't know how many persuadable voters are actually out there. But Kamala Harris had a chance here to introduce herself to the country, to people who know who she is but don't know where she stands. Now, you could debate
and you
how
still
much
don't know where she
stands.
Specifics
of where she stands, but she stood up there And I think it was very significant to hear Chris Christie say that she acted like she seemed like she belonged.
Exactly, and Chris
What a
was clearly
moron.
impressed with that. But to your point, John, what matters is what the voters think. Kamala Harris was hurling things against Donald Trump, and he's been convicted, and January 6th and everything else she could throw at him. But in the end, right now, he is tied with Kamala Harris. Does this change anything? We've all seen debates where people are very proud of what they did. Hillary Clinton thought she won that debate, many debates in 2016, and she didn't win. So you have to be very careful, and it's very important to see what the voters think.
And look, the Harris campaign certainly
Hey, that lady spoke logic, at least,
they put
on
him
that
on the
one part.
defensive. They are going to keep getting
I
out
don't know
and
about
making this
anything else
message.
she
She's going to
said,
be
but
out
that
there
was
in those
logical.
critical battlegrounds again later this week. They're so optimistic. They want that second debate. As Rachel said, the message from the campaign tonight, Vice President Harris is ready for a second debate. They're looking for one in October. They say, is Donald Trump, ? One last goading of him to end the night.
Wow, that is something else. I did not predict that at the beginning, Rachel.
Bottom line, voters out there want a change. That's what the polls say. And both of these candidates really trying to present themselves as the agent of change. We will have to see in the polls who did the most effective job of doing that tonight.
We will see. All right, that is it for us here in Philadelphia. A night to remember for sure. Our race for the White House post-debate coverage continues on ABC News Live, Disney+, Hulu, and anywhere else you stream live news. And your local news is next.
I think this is over.
And thank you so much for joining us on this special edition of ABC News Live, the race for the White House. I'm Wade Johnson. We are live from the spin room here in Philadelphia. You can see all the people gathering and the spin that's going on behind me after that historic face-off between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. A pivotal night in a historically close presidential race. It started with a handshake and a nice to see you, but then the candidates held nothing back. Take a look.
She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
For 90 minutes, highlighting their vast differences on everything from America's involvement in foreign wars to abortion rights and immigration. The former president promising to strengthen the economy, while Harris offered a vision for a less divided country.
We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other.
And I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger.
Our polls showing the race still neck and neck within the margin of error, including in the battleground states. But the question on many people's minds right now is who won the night on this first and likely last face-off in the race for president. We have live team coverage from the National Constitution Center and here in the spin room. We begin with our Jay O'Brien covering it all.
Kamala Harris. Tonight, the historic face-off. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump going head-to-head in their first and what will likely be their only debate before Election Day.
If she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. She has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window.
I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies. What you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. Oh. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
Trump lashing out.
She's been so bad, it's so ridiculous.
Trump in his 7th presidential debate, Harris her first.
I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace.
The candidates clashing on major issues like the economy.
Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy.
Abortion.
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. She said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote.
And immigration.
I'm the only person on this stage.
What you guys think of the debate, everybody else?
Criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
Harris mentioning Trump's legal woes, including 4 felony indictments and 1 conviction.
I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing.
Trump doubling down on his lies that he won the 2020 election.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker.
At least
That
they're
was said
showing like they're
sarcastically.
saying
Donald
sarcastic.
Trump was
You know?
fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
Their differences.
Yeah, but a lot of people said that they would have voted in the other direction and voted for him if they knew that the thing about Hunter Biden's laptop was real. But they were all the liberal media was saying that it was fake, and they lied,
significance
and
of America's role and
it's called
responsibility
election fraud.
in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up
Mark
for our
Zuckerberg
principles
committed
and not
election
sell
fraud.
them
That's why he's
for
being
the,
called
for
Donald
the
Trump, because he knows
benefit
Trump's going to
of
win.
personal flattery.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy.
It's
I'm
true.
a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation.
Plenty of big moments in the debate tonight. So joining us now is former Congressman Cedric Richmond, who's now co-chair for the Harris-Walz campaign. Mr. Richmond, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Heading into tonight's debate, the polls were showing that Kamala Harris still needed to tell her story, that voters wanted to know more about her and the issues and where she stood on the positions that matter to the voters. How do you think she did tonight?
Well, I think rightfully so. I think voters deserve to know the candidates that they're voting for. And I think she did an excellent job tonight talking about not only her values, but talking about her plan for the American people. And I think that was the big difference tonight. She focused on how do I help Americans dealing with several challenges, the challenges of child care, the challenges of affordable housing, the challenges of rising grocery prices. And I think she addressed all of that. And I think the American people are giving her a fresh look, and I think she did an excellent job.
Donald Trump, the former president, says that she's a flip-flopper. She can't be trusted because her issues have evolved so much over the years. Do you think that she properly addressed that tonight?
Absolutely. I think that she was.
What did she address exactly? What though? What
for example, with fracking in healthcare?
What she didn't
said
say
she
that.
wouldn't ban fracking as vice president. She didn't ban fracking, and she has no intention on banning fracking. When she talked about healthcare, she said her values was always that healthcare should be a right and not a privilege just for the rich. And she talked about how to expand healthcare. So I think she did a very good job of going into her policies and how they align with her values as growing up in a middle-class family. And how that relates to the families in the United States right now.
Another thing heading into tonight.
Yeah, what do we think so far? I think it was a dub for Trump, in my opinion. Dude, look how many people are talking. There's no point in talking. Like I'm trying to type something and like. Alright.
And not when we are overconfident. After tonight, there should be no overconfidence, everybody. Kamala Harris took her debate prep Wheaties. And I'm not saying she won anything. I'm saying the media's going to say she won. This was not even a debate. This was an inquisition.
Yeah, this was.
But
it shouldn't even have.
They're going to try to make this thing very, very close. They had the whole thing psychologically profiled. Rallies, McCain, former staff, 1, 2, right, Blake? It was as if somebody who had studied President Trump for a long, long time. And, oh, my goodness, the way she delivered the line was so fake, but it was so scripted, where she said, I want everyone to watch a rally. And President Trump, they start leaving early. There is nothing that bothers President Trump more than when people say that people leave early. And that's well documented in a lot of different books. And he went right in on that. And again, it didn't help with all the moderators and all that. So I want to play this. This is President Trump's closing statement. I think it was his strongest moment of the night, where he made the case to the American people, right? I want to play the full thing, but first I want to thank Andrew, Hannah, Leanne, CJ, Kevin, Jean, Gail, Rodney, Ellie, and Shelby, members.charliekirk.com, members.charliekirk.com, play cut 97.
President Trump.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like, we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country.
The debate was great. Did you watch it?
The worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you.
You guys can become a member, members.charliekirk.com. President Trump should be going to the spin room, unless my sources are wrong, at any moment here. Then also, let's see, we have the Taylor Swift endorsement. A lot of news happening right now, Blake. This is the place to be. I also want to read the bottom of this. Taylor Swift signed her Instagram post as a childless cat lady.
Man.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I streamed it. You can check
she
it out
literally says
later.
Taylor Swift signed childless cat lady.
Well, after Kamala's president, she might not have the cats much longer.
Isn't this exactly with all the Haitians? They're going to eat Taylor Swift's cat. Taylor, they're coming after your cat.
They'll just be like, it'll be like 5 years from now.
That's cool.
I never thought
how's everything
this
been?
could happen when she
How's the
expressly
family?
voted for the cat eating party.
Let me be very clear. The Haitians are going to eat Taylor's cat.
They're going to. Every single one of them.
I hope it gets clipped up. I want to deport Haitians to protect Taylor's cat.
We should. We believe we are principled people. We believe in protecting the cats of all Americans, even those who vote incorrectly.
Yeah, no, I think that hashtag protect Taylor's cats. Could we get a tweet up going here?
Oh
Deport
yeah,
Haitians
that's awesome.
because Taylor deserves the right.
How was work tonight?
Fried Snickers sounds pretty good, dude. Did they serve that at the Iowa State Fair?
Is that a Haitian dish? Fried Snickers?
I think deep fried Snickers is a thing you can get at.
She named her cat Meredith.
Meredith.
That's insane.
Whoa.
Who gives their cats like human names? You name them like Snickers or Frizz. Like.
I feel like cats usually do have
good. I mean, whatever it is, what it is.
That have names like
Trump
Buster
definitely got the best of her. But,
so she signed it as child.
Not saying much.
So
she,
we need to protect her cat by deporting
answered questions and just cackled.
People say don't attack.
And she cut him off a lot, which is weird. Like they didn't cut her mic off.
All right, so yeah, that's right there in our face. Tyler, your thoughts on the evening?
Yeah, I mean, my key takeaway here is we just got to work harder. This just you're going to be in this position.
Yeah, definitely. That's all. Just got to work harder.
The media was going to be stacked up against
us. There's no taking your foot off the pedal, regardless of how the debate went.
They couldn't do anything. Their hands were tied, and this is a total Obama drive-by situation here where. Clearly, some people were saying it looked like she had an earpiece in her right
ear. And how come people say the vice president isn't important? The vice president for sure is important. If something happens to the president, the vice president's in
nonstop
charge.
To Barack Obama, she's mimicking some of his characteristics in debates. They probably had her on a diet cleanse for the last 3 days and just mentally focused. And when you're up against people who are doing that. You've got to be at the top of your game. And it's not just President Trump that has to be at the top of his game. We have to be at the top of our game for get out the vote strategies. We have to make sure that we're talking to our neighbors, and we have to get out absolutely every possible Republican vote that we can in Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and of course, Michigan and Nevada. But Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, I think is where this election is going to land. And so we've got to do everything we possibly can to make sure that we come out on top. And that's the way that you combat this, is if you're not feeling good about how the media is treating our President Trump, you got to get out work, help us knock 100 doors, join TP Action at tpaction.com/100.
I love it. Okay, let's go here. Can you do the Rumble donations, please?
Yeah. We've got some donations from a few people, so we want to read them off. Namarston donated $50 and just said, Trump 2024, amen, rally the troops. Move on from tonight, whatever you think of it. Let's go win. Namarston, $200. Trump 2024. Stop communism. Amen. We're going to win. We're going to stop them. And we have $25 from Veteran RN. Charlie, I love your team. I will donate to your team for ballot efforts. Taylor is pagan.
I'm not attacking Taylor. I'm protecting her rights to her
We are
cats.
protecting her cats, which she may have for witchcraft-related purposes, but we will protect it no matter what. No matter what.
That's right. Any others?
That's what we have right now.
Okay. Let's go to some more tape here. I think we have this. Yeah, this is J.D. Vance and the Spin Room Play Cut 99.
Oh, I didn't see anything.
Trump is right to call it out, and Kamala Harris, like so many other issues, she has no way to explain why she's going to be better as president than she has been as vice president. It's her policies that caused the problem. She should have an answer for that.
It's true. He didn't say anything wrong there.
All right, it's a little difficult to hear, and the camera is not the best. The show.
Yeah, hard to kind of hear that. So the other part that I think is very
important. How you just change the title on a YouTube short
is being missed
and it
here.
Just instantly throws it
the
in
topics
the
that were barely discussed. And also, by the way, remember Donald Trump's fact check, where they try to fact check on the FBI?
That was appalling. It's objectively
But President
true.
Trump was right.
Yeah,
and they just backed off.
Yeah, huge amounts of data were left out of that, and including just some cities did not submit their murder data, and I'm gonna guess it's probably the more disordered ones that didn't catch up because they changed their crime reporting standards. And even that framing, crime is going down. Yeah, because crime went up a ton in 21 and 22 and 2020 because of a giant left-wing backed, reckoning, as they called it. So yeah, it's going down. It's also way higher than it was in 2017, 2018, or 2019, period. And in some cities, it's still going up. In some cities, it's actually exploding right now. And for them to just frame it, as, oh, actually, the FBI says crime's good. It's revolting that they do this. It is insane that these people can call themselves journalists and behave this way.
The essence that could have been better flushed out is Kamala Harris saying, I will fix things if you vote me into office, says the woman currently in office.
Yeah.
Right.
And that needs to be repeated ad nauseum. Repeated. Jack,
sense.
what are we seeing online here? Jack, what are your thoughts to some people in the audience that feel as if Trump was so outnumbered, was so outgunned that, this is going to impact the election a lot? Talk about how debates don't always
think it's gonna
impact election results and the need to get up the next day and keep working.
Right. Why not just go do it now?
This debate was it comes at a time where the situation was close. It was already a close race. Remember, most national polls had it within 2-3 points, or Trump was up a little bit here, Kamala's up a little bit there. The swing states always come down to 50-50. Again, this is going to be a marginal election. And look, at the end of the day, I think most people have already kind of priced in where they stand on Donald Trump. One debate is not going to change people's opinions on Donald Trump because he's been in the political eye now for a decade. People have made their decision and they've broken with this past view of that the mainstream media has any truth. And by the way, for a lot of think of the trajectory of this. So the media does this political struggle session with President Trump, the Maoist struggle session, right at the time that so many independents have come around to waking up. People like Bill Ackman, people like Sean McGuire, people like Elon Musk, waking up to all of the mainstream media lies about Donald Trump, people like RFK Jr. Then they run into something like this. Guess what? This just confirms that the corporate media does and by the way, it was the corporate media, and this is something that I remember I said this after the last debate, so I'm going to be consistent here. The corporate media ganged up on Joe Biden after the last debate, and I called that a political coup. And now they are attempting a political coup of President Trump. They are attempting to shape and define the election itself. So that's why it's going to fall to we the people the same way it always falls to we the people. That's why I'm up here in Pennsylvania. That's why I'm going to be going across Pennsylvania all through September, all through October. We're doing the Get Out the Vote rallies. We're doing the ballot drives. We're doing the PHAs with Cliff Maloney, with Scott Presler. Folks, it's going to come down to the ballots.
Yep.
The media is trying to shape the narrative, but if you don't do the ballots, and by the way, we're not talking a lot. We're talking about if just 55% of the ballots were returned from 2020 in 2024, then Trump's president, okay? Just 50%. We're talking about ballots that are already out, Republicans that didn't return their ballots. All you have to do is go and reach out to these people. And we're talking about, maybe 100,000 people. Okay. Do you do that in terms of
So one sec. Trump is in the spin room right now, as predicted. Can we throw to that right now? Become a member, members.charliekirk.com. Let's go to Trump. Thank you. Thank you, Kylie.
Jay, what's going on?
Wait, Donald Trump has just walked into the spin room here. He's walking here. Mr. Trump, we're live on ABC News here, sir. Mr. Trump. I think he's about to talk. Wait, here we go.
So we thought it was our best debate ever. It was my best debate ever, I think.
It's the best ever.
It showed how weak they are, how pathetic they are, and what they're doing to destroy our country and the border with foreign trade, with everything. And I think it was the best debate I've ever personally that I've had. We're getting polls that show 92 to 6, 88 to 11. We're having a lot of great polls that just came out. They're polls, I guess, phone polls and lots of other polls, but you see the polls. A very important debate. Now, she wants to do another one because she got beaten tonight, but I don't know if we're going to do another one. I wouldn't mind.
Did she get into your head tonight, sir?
The polls are indicating that we got 90%, 60%, 72%, 71%, and 89%. So the polls are very good, but beyond the polls, I felt very good. I had a good time doing it. I hate to speak about our country so negatively, but that's what happened. They've ruined our country. They've destroyed our country. So I hope you're all having a good time, but it was a very interesting evening. Yeah, go ahead.
So confident you won tonight. Why are you here? Why not let the performance speak for itself?
Well, I think it did, but people said, would I come here? And I made an obligation to a couple of people that I'm going to do their show. but it was I thought it was a great night.
Mr. President, you talked.
I have no idea.
Mr. President, when Republicans are complaining about moderators, does that mean that it wasn't a good night? Were you not prepared?
No, I thought the moderators were very unfair, but it basically was 3-on-1. But I thought they were very unfair, the moderators. Everybody did. But despite that, they're saying that the debate was a big debate.
Were you prepared for that kind of debate?
Yeah, I assume the moderators would be bad because that right there is the worst of all the news networks, in my opinion, and it always has been. Yeah.
Why won't you commit to a second debate with Kamala Harris if you believe?
A second debate because she lost tonight very badly. So they immediately called for a second debate because they lost. So we'll, think about that. But she immediately called for a second. Look, we're looking at polls. We're looking at polls. The worst poll that we've had was 71 that I see, 71% to like 24 or 25%. Well, we'll look at it. But
All right, Whit. So if you still have me, he's walked a little bit away from our camera. Now he's at the edge there. You won't be able to hear him well. But one of the things you did hear was a question just asked by our Catherine Folders asking, why not commit to another debate if you believe that you won? He said he believes he won this debate.
Is there another feed we can take, guys?
Why be here in the spin room spinning about this debate if it's a debate that you believe?
Did ABC just cut him off again?
Yeah, ABC
Did they just cut him off again?
He's on Fox right now. He's on Sky News right now. He's on ABC, sort of. He's on Newsmax. This was very smart of him to do. Objectively smart. Get back in the arena. Get the cameras on you. Get on message.
Yes, I like it. Good strategy.
Oh, by the way, they're eating the dogs is also trending on Twitter.
That's what he said in the debate, actually, right?
If we can find another feed, guys, that'd be great. But for the record, they're eating the cats, not the dogs.
Cats and dogs living together on the dinner plate.
He said they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. I think that I'd love to get another feed up here, but I think that people seeing President Trump just seeing very nonchalant, being up there and able to be surrounded by media, talk the way that he is, projecting calm. I think it does a lot to kind of push back on. I've seen some of these completely wild takes on Twitter, people being like all doom and gloom, and they're just blackpilling out there for really no reason whatsoever.
Everyone needs to calm down.
He just walks right out there. Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, you go to a good time at the debate. Yeah, it was 3-on-1. It was very, very biased, very, very unfair. But again, he's willing to show that he's right there. He said, why does she want another debate so bad? She wants another one very quickly. All right, we'll see about that. By the way, he was the one who proposed more debates early on, not her. She was the one who wanted to trim this to one debate. Now she's potentially talking about another one, but he proposed, I believe, 3 when we originally went into all of this. So the idea that he is, has any worry about having another debate, it's ridiculous. It's actually the opposite of reality. And of course, ABC, like you said, cut him off the same way that ABC was cutting him off all night. So, we can't get our microphones there. Yeah, all of your microphones are there. Again, this is a time where people have to just look at it and say, you know what? This is an election that we're in. It was never going to be an easy election, okay? Someone took a shot at President Trump, all right? By the way, when he brought that up, he was cut off by ABC, cut off by David Muir, and he was, the next question never came up.
And by the way, how disgraceful. Not even a question about him getting shot by the ABC.
So we have J6, which was 4 years ago, but not J13, which was less than 2 months ago.
No one cares.
How can you bring up one without the other? We have one of the most horrific acts.
It's exhausting battling these people, isn't it, Blake? I mean,
Are they?
It's just exhausting. Sorry to cut you off there, Jack. We're trying to get another feed. Donald Trump is live in the spin room right now.
Okay, David.
Yeah, it's exactly. Let's go to members.charliekirk.com. Daisy, let's send them. Blake, you have a thought here?
Well, we have more donation messages.
Yeah,
I like to
that.
read these because then they'll donate more. We have Brown CK. He says, mad respect for you, Charlie. A Colorado Patriot for Trump.
We were there too.
Donated $20. We have Matthew Matthias says, I love Blake. I also love Blake, so I'm inclined to agree with that one. And Veteran RN donating another $50. He says, Charlie, the local election office won't allow me to be an observer at the polls, probably because I'm a January 6th subject. But, you know, that's okay. If they don't let you, you can volunteer in a lot of other ways. That's all I'll say. If they won't let you do that, there's a million other ways to get involved. So
I want to thank, again, we're doing members right now, members.charliekirk.com. I'm signing hats all evening here. I want to thank Brock. I want to thank Jeremy. I want to thank Rock. I want to thank James, Audrey, James, Harris, Steve, thank you, Ken, David, Melissa, Sasha, Marine, Connor, Heather, Sean, Corina, Nathaniel, Mindy, Joan, Parker, and Heidi. I'm signing hats for all of you guys. You can listen to all of our episodes advertiser free. Members.charliekirk.com. That is members.charliekirk.com. President Trump is just walking around right now. And yeah, it's hard to kind of even hear him in the spin room here. Boy, that was a corporate media drive-by. As in the great Rush Limbaugh, right, Tyler? That was a drive-by shooting by the corporate media.
You know, they
That's
usually,
all right, though.
I think people will usually think of CNN as really biased or the Washington Post, but really, like, I think the true bastions of some of the most outrageous bias are just old school network news, those people.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't get as much attention because they're not doing 24-hour news cycles every single day. But there are some nasty people at those. It's sort of who's the guy who runs the Onion now?
I don't know.
I can't remember his name.
Collins from NBC.
Yeah, Ben Collins. He was at NBC, just a guy at NBC News, and he was mentally unbalanced, man. That guy was on Twitter having mental breakdowns every day. Easily one of the most biased reporters ever, and also one of the least funny people ever. So now he's off running the Onion, and well, I haven't seen any Onion articles linked lately.
So Tyler, your thoughts on the drive-by media and that term from Rush?
Drive-by media did a drive-by debate tonight. It should have been expected. I mean, honestly, this should have been the entire debate prep, was knowing that was coming. The last debate, the left looked at, if you just read through Twitter, the last debate, the left thought that they didn't go after Trump enough. They didn't spend too much time on Trump. And it was a pretty balanced and fairly conducted debate. And that's part of the reason why Trump exceeded expectations, I think, beyond even what most pundits came into the last debate. And so, you look at this one, I mean, this was just like incessant, in real time fact checking that should have been expected. I think personally, and again, we could talk about this here, but I would have liked to see Trump call out the media a little bit more. I think the preparation should say, hey, what is this? You guys are all ganging up against me. And I think just saying a couple more of those lines would have been also clipped a lot, because I think that would have framed the entire debate and then sunk it.
That's all right,
the media
though.
hates
That's cool.
when Trump has done that in the past. Fox News hated that when he did that with Megyn Kelly. And so, I think he should have done that, just like in a very specific way. And I don't think he needed to repeat it multiple times, but I think just saying it once would have gone a long way.
Members.charliekirk.com. That is members.charliekirk.com. The Taylor Swift's post has 2.5 million likes so far. She's disabled all the comments, though, as she has now officially endorsed Kamala Harris for the presidency. Members.charliekirk.com. Yes.
We have our own good ones. One, we have Blake Thinnis. I'm not sure how to say that, unfortunately, but they are a comment. They say, Omaha loves you, Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got that. And then also, I want to flag, this is a good comment from our new ally, RFK Jr. He tweeted this during the debate. Vice President Harris sounds like she just admitted the COVID virus originated in a lab. That was one of the conspiracy theories the Biden-Harris administration censored on the internet with the collusion of big tech, of course. So just a reminder of the stakes and a reminder of one of the many things that these moderators could have, followed up with Harris about if they weren't too busy teeing up the next softball about Trump.
Okay, let's play some more tape here from the debate, and also we're going to be linking arms with Real America's Voice sometime soon. Members.charliekirk.com. That is members.charliekirk.com. I want to play some more tape here. Do we have a cut sheet here, just from some of the ones tonight? Let me see here. I'm trying to scroll up. So much breaking news here. President Trump goes to the spin room. So many things happening. Let me see.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I saw a bunch of people saying, and Cernovich had tweeted, it's so bizarre that she has these very detailed answers to questions like the 80,000 Poles living in Pennsylvania, which, by the way, as a Pennsylvania Pole, yeah, I'm definitely not voting for you. And none of the Polish people I know in my family or the others, like at the Czestochowa festival last weekend, are definitely not voting for you. But, this really canned familiarity with the questions, and it leads me to think is perhaps we've got the script inverted. Did ABC give Kamala questions, or did Team Kamala give ABC the questions? I mean, I can't get over how directly on point they seemed the entire night.
Okay, so now this gives me hope. Everyone's just got to calm down. How many times have I seen this? The front page of the Drudge Report is the end.
The end.
I mean, come on.
The walls are closing in.
Are we allowed to live stream right now with Fox News? Or are we not? Are we allowed to take it? Or, Andrew, what are the rules with that?
I don't know.
We'll clip it. Why don't we clip it? Why don't we do clipping? Let's do clipping. I want to be legal here. Jack, can you read the quote?
Picture. And
Jack, can you read the quote, Jack, from Tim Miller?
Tim Miller from The Bulwark, and I believe he's in the spin room just across town here in Philadelphia. And Tim says, just spoke with Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham, in the spin room, and he said the debate team should be fired and Trump was unprepared, in quotes, disaster. So that's Tim Miller. He's like a never Trumper turned liberal
snarky
type guy.
Snarky. Look, here's the thing. Kamala Harris, this is all she focused on for a couple weeks. She didn't want to talk about anything else. She didn't want to do anything else.
Right.
This is all she wanted to think about. And she had her sequencing. They trained her. If you hear A, do B. Try to go to your 1, 2, 3 attack lines. Again, rallies, McCain, former staffers. Rallies, McCain, former staffers. And
let's see what Stephen Crowder has to say. Oh no, she's got.
I have a responsibility as a United States Senator.
By the way, can I just, anyone who acts like this is outlandish, we had a restaurant in Greenfield Park, a Chinese buffet, where they were caught catching seagulls and serving them to patrons. As though you don't believe that people from third world countries come to this country and say, hey, look, free food. Of course they do. It's that the local authorities have no interest in investigating it.
They don't want to believe it when it's their policies bringing them.
Exactly.
I had Korean food. You don't burp, you go. It was a dog, if anybody wanted to.
I wasn't clear.
I wasn't either. It used to come out much better when I was younger.
See, what's Jake looking at his phone for?
And the problems created there, saying we have to make up nonsense that isn't true so that the media covers things that the media is already covering is an odd defense. But
the media was never covering the migrant crime. Does anyone actually comment? Do you actually believe that the media was covering Aurora, Colorado? That they were covering Springfield, Ohio before it had been brought up? Hey, was the media covering the weaponization of the DOJ until you, Mug Club, supported the undercover investigation? Of course they weren't. They were saying Donald Trump's a convicted felon. They were saying that immigration is actually going swimmingly under this. And then they try and claim credit afterwards, like saying, well, we've always been covering this as though we've been calling balls and strikes. Let's watch Chris Wallace, who, by the way, I'm pretty sure cucks.
Media hasn't cared about immigrant crime. There have been all kinds of stories and all kinds of coverage of immigrant crime, and every state is a border state. It was a big issue in the Republican.
Are you saying it's not true?
We covered those speeches. It was very affecting. To make up stories now about pets and to sit there on national television and defend it, as Krauthammer would say, whatever they're paying them, it's not enough.
Can we just cut through to what it is? It's not about the media not reporting.
You haven't proven that he's wrong.
This is.
He said they are getting calls about this, firsthand and second.
They're getting people at town halls.
Here comes racism.
The reason why we are covering the memes isn't because we're covering the underlying allegation about immigration. What we are covering are
Republican public
allegations,
officials lying,
but lying also suggesting
Hold on, Jake, you haven't proven that.
That people of color are
people from countries who eat dirt cookies.
You see how
people from countries who believe that their leader, Papa Doc, was able to actually use voodoo because he was ordained by God and they were afraid to vote against him. You know what you've never heard? I present to you the most recent Miss Universe, Miss Haiti.
That's true. That's true. Ooh, would be an upgrade. I think we have some audio from Trump basically responding to Kamala calling for a second debate. Tim, do you have that?
Yes. All right, let's go. Good. Well, let's go to this really quickly.
Having a lot of great calls interested phone calls and lots of other calls, but you see the calls. A very important debate. Now, she wants to do another one because she got beaten tonight, but...
All right, so look, this is, let me be really, we're going to go again to Mug Club right now and take your chats. This was 3-on-1, and now you see it's 20-on-1 as far as the CNN panels.
Yeah.
This is where it's your job. Donald Trump is one, okay? Your job, Mug Club. You see what happened with the DOJ story. We have more coming up this next week, by the way, between now and election. Make it not 3-on-1, 20-on-1. Make it several 100,000 on one. Hey, are you from Springfield, Ohio?
Yes.
Then let's do work for you. Make sure the public knows your story. Hey, are you from Aurora, Colorado? Make sure the public knows your story because the media thinks you're a rube. The media, who, by the way, is in the pocket of the Democratic establishment, they think that your voice doesn't matter and you're too stupid to know better. Let's take the word of their elected officials. Let's take the word of their sometimes unelected city officials. We, right now, between now and election, this is where it's very easy to say, okay, it's Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. No, it's Donald Trump versus an army of legacy media, and this is the inflection moment at this time in history right now with this country where you can actually affect change and make a difference. Hey, we don't know where we will be after. If this election, to give you an idea of the consequences, we know this. Numbers don't lie. Yeah. Bottom lines don't lie. If Kamala Harris is president, we have to make, we have contingency plans in place here at this very show. Okay. Why? Because her, and we showed you, Tim Walz, believe that if you are a political dissident, whether it's in Brazil or this country, you should be silenced and you should be deplatformed.
Yes.
That's us. But if you're from Ohio, Springfield, if you're from Colorado, guess what? That could just as easily be you. They want to silence us and silence Donald Trump in the same way you see them silencing the citizens of Springfield, Ohio. Now, look, maybe it's true. Maybe it's not been verified that they're eating cats and ducks. But no one even wants to investigate. That's the point. No one even wants to investigate the claims from citizens in a city. This is why Springfield matters.
Right.
58,000 citizens, I'm going by rote, pretty sure that's right. 20,000 migrants in the span of a year and a half or less under this administration. And they are saying, they're crying out, we need help. This is destroying our city. And the media has no interest in running down that investigation, in doing the work for you. Is the media supposed to serve you? And by the way, when I say you, let me put a finer point on it. Springfield, Ohio? Aurora, Colorado? Where do you live? Is the media supposed to serve you wherever you live in this country? Because it's pretty damn clear they will mock you. They hate you. They will not investigate the claims that you make, and you can't expect your rigged system to do so either. That's why we've burned the boats. That's why we have left nothing for the swim back, and we're about to go to Mug Club. That is why between now and election, November 5th, 2024, we will do everything in our power, every dollar you spend. Click that button if you want to join Mug Club. If we haven't done a good enough job, then please don't. Right now you get $24 off. We will investigate, whether it is Nashville, the manifesto, Chippewa Falls, the school would-be shootings that have taken place there, and Gerald went down to effectively a PTA conference, Butler County, where we have a girl who was sexually assaulted, we've done that as well, or the UN, we've done investigations on that, or the DOJ. If you make a claim that affects your day-to-day life, the media wants to leave you out in the cold, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that as many people out there know your story.
Yeah, Kamala Harris just...
We've got some breaking news, that perhaps the most important news of all. Okay. This is probably the news that people will be talking about more than anything else that comes out of tonight based off the way our society works. That's a picture of Taylor Swift with her cat. And she just endorsed Kamala Harris on Instagram, saying, I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I'm voting for them because she fights for rights and causes I believe in, need a warrior to champion them. She's a steady hand, gifted leader. I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we're not led by if we are led by calm and not chaos.
And she's a childless cat lady.
She's talking about LGBTQ rights, IVF, women's right to choose.
Did anyone think she was going to endorse Trump?
Well,
of course, she endorsed Biden back in 2020.
Right,
so this is not.
But to quote Taylor, Donald Trump is the smallest man who ever lived, and she knows all too well who we should all be voting for, and that's Kamala.
I mean, on the margins, though, do you think this sort of thing could make a difference?
No, I think if it does make a difference, those people shouldn't vote.
Well,
you want people voting who take a recommendation from Taylor Swift?
As a huge Swiftie who went to her Eras concert, let me tell you, I think her endorsement makes a big difference to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, she is the most popular person in the country.
I mean, she is.
Fucking moron.
Spend us now. That didn't work. We survived because of you. We had 17 million people who watched the election stream in 2020. You were here with us. Between now and election,
I'm going to be serving that election this year.
Not just for a national election, it's a sprint for the spirit of this country and your ability to choose what you watch, who you support, and the mere ability to speak.
To every citizen who is sick and tired of the parasitic political class in Washington that sucks our country of its blood and treasure, November 5th will be your liberation date.
It's such an important election because you have someone who could be in that White House who has a vested interest in ensuring that legacy media isn't even seen as legacy media. It's seen as a relic of a bygone era that is irrelevant and should be. And that's very exciting to me.
Yes.
What we did in 2020 is child's play compared to what we are about to do today. We already have on the ground in major swing states and cities in what they are digging up right now before this election with an army of volunteers and investigative journalists and more access to data in real time than anybody else.
Take a nap during the day so I can just stay up all night
with us. There's no reason to tune in anywhere else that night. The election live stream of the century. Imagine dominoes falling in every state with corruption.
November 5th this year will be the most important day in the history of our country, because we're not going to have a country anymore if we don't win. And we will make America great again.
The election live stream of the century, November 5th, 2024. Be there with us. Fight like hell.
That is hilarious.
To the future of our family.
To look for evidence of voter fraud. They came back, they said there isn't any. Okay, but what he's trying to do is that in some way that should be rejected. Now his allies say, well, some of the COVID changes to voting practice.
You guys are dum-dums. See who's still alive. Wait, it says Crowder's still alive. Oh, it just hasn't ended yet.
Well, the Republicans are like, oh, Trump maybe missed a few moments to hit her where it hurts, but like his policies are obviously better for America. A couple of my friends that were undecided, they said, I didn't even watch the debate. That was my two answers I got. So, and there's a clip that we're going to be pulling as well. That's the panel that one of the Nets did on undecided voters. None of them moved. Okay, so let's go back in time to, and by the way, I totally think Trump should take the second debate if given the opportunity. I think he totally should. I think his approach tonight is totally fine. It's like, hey, listen, let me look at the rules. Let's get the rules right. Let's get the network right. Let's get the moderators right. After tonight, that is all the more important. But I totally think he should take the second debate. I think he will absolutely build on this, and he will have a great performance in debate 2. So I think I'm team take the second debate, absolutely. So I would just say this isn't going to move the needle. And if we look back to 2020, where everybody said he lost this first debate, then it came back stronger. So I would say this, and he was down nationally in the national polls, according to the pollsters at the time, 4 points on the averages. He still came 42,000 ballots short to Jack's point. We have augmented the GOTV part of this race significantly since then. There's lots more people out in the field, lots more full-time paid staffers, professionals trained up using better technology, better data than we ever had in 2020. 42,000 ballots. We are tied, if not up, according to New York Times Siena. We've retaken the enthusiasm advantage. A lot of the models have Trump up. We never had any of that in 2020. There is a lot on this board that is very, very positive. The people are fed up with the Biden-Harris economy. Everyday people going to the grocery store is a walking ad for President Trump. We can't forget structurally how much we have the wind at our back in this election. And so a couple of things. Don't think it's going to move the needle. Don't think it moved undecideds. I think RFK's endorsement moved way more people who were in the middle, in the squishy middle. And I think take the debate. I think Trump's going to absolutely smash if he gets another chance.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. By the way, we're 5 minutes from a rejoin with our great friends at Real America's Voice right now. You guys become a members.charliekirk.com. I'm signing hats right here. I want to thank Brittany. Thank you for being a member. Manny, John, Kirk, Zach, Martha, Haram, Lori, Ryan. Imagine if I named my son Kirk.
If you named your son Harambe.
Harambe?
We had Haram. We could have Haram.
R.I.P. Harambe.
We got Denise earlier. Do you think we'll get her brother?
I'm not sure. This is MSNBC asking undecided voters to react. Again, we're anticipating this, so brace for impact. Play cut 100.
Trump say about abortion rights? Absolutely, because he was intentionally sensationalizing and giving false information, essentially disinformation.
Is that an issue that motivates the two of you? Like, is that going to make you want to vote for perhaps Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris?
It's an important factor. There's just so many other things that concern me more that I can't say that that's my top. That's not my top.
So that was on the abortion topic. It doesn't seem, right, Jack? I mean, that doesn't seem like a slam dunk, right?
You were preparing me for your brace for impact. I'm like, this was the primed MSNBC undecided voter. Right. You would think that that's the person who's going to be like, look, the abortion thing is very concerning to me. Reproductive rights are very important. I want to preserve them for my daughters, my granddaughters, whatever. And she didn't say that. She said, yeah, it's important, but there's other important issues. And one huge thing here is you got to say that, I will also point out that Kamala Harris is a very strong abortion. President Trump's best answers of the night all had to do with war and foreign policy. Kamala Harris, I just have to say this, by the way, Kamala Harris stood on the side of the warmongers. She repeated George W. Bush, Dick Cheney talking points up there. She repeated talking points that we haven't heard since the days of it. She sounded like Nikki Haley. She sounded like Nikki Haley. She sounded like Dick Cheney. She sounded like all the Hillary Clinton.
All the warmongers.
We were told earlier before the debate that she talked to Hillary before she went in. This is endless war. This is nuclear annihilation. This is your kids and your soldiers being killed. This is Abbey Gate all over the world again and again and again. But the biggest thing is that even though Trump was best on that, we didn't hear a lot of talk about the economy tonight, did we? And that's the number one issue. No. ABC knew that the economy is the number one issue. The economy is the best issue for Trump. And I would argue and submit, by the way, that they deliberately shaded the debate so they could get into all of these other things rather than really focus on the economy, which is going to be the driver for the election.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. The first part on the economy on tariffs lasted about 10 minutes. And there really wasn't a clear winner, right, Blake? It was just kind of back and forth. The abortion was the second topic. I think we got a little too weedsy on abortion. The moderators were very, very unfair on the abortion topic.
For sure. I'm so annoyed with that answer where they say, I think Trump was very sensationalist on that question. No, Trump was totally accurate.
Mean?
There are states where this is legal through birth. The governor of Virginia has said keep it legal through birth. Tim Walz changed Minnesota's laws to make it so you were not nearly as legally exposed if you have a born alive child in a botched abortion and it dies. Like, this is true. And then he's sensational, but not Kamala, who's just like, your 9-year-old will be raped and have a miscarriage, and you won't be allowed to treat it because Trump is going to helicopter in. And it's like, it's just this shrill insanity.
That's right.
When Trump's position is, the states can vote on this.
But Blake, let me, and not necessarily play devil's advocate, but you remember how you were talking earlier about how she talks like a TV character, right? This is the false reality that so many voters live in because of Hollywood. And we actually wrote about this in the book, that this is the fried mental model that people have of red states when you talk about like Alabama, Arkansas, or Texas, or Mississippi, or Louisiana. They actually believe that's what goes on in red states. They actually believe these things. This is the Handmaid's Tale. This is all that stuff. So, you know, you and I can sit here and say, oh, it's crazy, and you know, it obviously is. But again, they don't believe that stuff because they have no clue what goes on other than what they see in Hollywood, versus they have no idea the fact that just in Oregon, abortion is legal up to 7 months. That's on the books right now. Right, this isn't even just some hot mic thing.
New Mexico is up until birth is New Mexico. Period.
It's up until birth. So this is what they have no idea what goes on in red states, and they don't know the truth about what goes on in blue states. So unfortunately, there's a reason that she say that Trump stuff seems theatrical and spectacular, but Obama, yeah, Kamala's doesn't.
Yeah, sorry, I'm doing a David Muir. I want to welcome Real America's Voice. We are now on Real America's Voice. Hello, everybody. Let's reintroduce the panel. We got Blake, as you all know. We have producer Andrew joining remotely, and also Jack Posobiec. If you guys want to become a member to get one of these hats, I have a pile of hats right here. You guys could do so, members.charliekirk.com. I also want to remind you to download the Real America's Voice app while you're at it for our good friends Parker and Rob Sig. So hello to Real America's Voice, members.charliekirk.com. I'm signing them throughout the evening. You can listen to all of our episodes advertiser-free. So much to cover. Ryan wants me to play Cut 101, saying that this woman listens to Charlie. Well, it was on CNN? Was this a CNN focus group? Did she mention us, Ryan, or she just listens to our talking points? You're telling me for the first time. Oh, our talking points? Okay, play Cut 101.
What did you see that brought you to a conclusion?
I think it's important to remember that we are voting for the leader of our country and not who we like the most or who we want in our wedding party, but who is actually going to make our country better. And we're in an incredibly unique situation where we've had both of the candidates in office before, and we've gotten to see what they would do. And when facts come to facts, my life was better when Trump was in office. The economy was higher, inflation was lower, things were better overall. And now with Kamala's administration, things haven't been so fantastic. And she's saying she can fix the problems that her administration has caused, but I just don't know if I can afford to take that risk.
I want to find this woman and send her a signed hat.
Wow.
That's an undecided voter. That's an undecided voter after the debate. Andrew, according to the media, you think that there wouldn't be anybody like this.
Right.
Andrew, that's very powerful. That is on CNN saying that, you know, Trump, my life was better under Trump. She said it better than I think anybody else did tonight. Your thoughts, Andrew?
Well, and this is why we have to get out of our heads about this a little bit. I'm telling you, every trip to a grocery store is a free Trump ad. Every trip to fill up your tank is a free Trump ad. When we have Frontlines reporters from Turning Point USA in Springfield, Ohio today, and they're complaining about how they can't afford rent, how migrants have taken over all the facilities. They can't get social services. They can't get Medicare, Medicaid cards, or whatever it was. They can't get their insurance rates are going through the roof. I'm telling you, all of these things add up so much more than any spin you're going to see tonight on ABC, CNN, MSNBC. And we knew this going in, that we're all going to say that Kamala won. We predicted that in the pre-show. And it's everything that we're seeing, though, anecdotally, after the fact, from real voters, people that actually have a say in this election. They're saying, yeah, it doesn't change my vote. I don't know if I can afford to do this. So, listen, did Trump have his best night? I don't think so. Did he totally blow it? Absolutely not. Did he land a couple punches? 100%. Are so many people's minds made up across the country based on their lived experience? Absolutely. And the way that woman put it at the end is perfectly said. I can't afford to take that risk for 4 more years of the same. I literally cannot afford it. And that's the bottom line. That's what's driving people this election cycle. She's an incumbent, and we all know it.
I want to thank Tori. I'm signing a hat for you right now. Ravi, Daniel, Kelly, and Winnie. Members.charliekirk.com, and you guys can listen to all of our episodes advertiser free as we do streams for hours and hours and hours. Members.charliekirk.com. Blake.
I just want to hit some of the paid comments because they are supporting us. We have on YouTube, we have Bolt Up, $50. He says, "How do I become a member? I would love a signed hat from the Beast Charlie." He just said it there. Go to members.charliekirk.com. You can sign up for the membership program. That's how you do it. If you donate on YouTube or Rumble, we appreciate it, but that's not our membership program for the hat. So go to members.charliekirk.com. We have a guy who I cannot read that name. Has donkey in it. He donated $20 and he said, "Maybe I missed it, but what is this border bill Trump supposedly shot down? I'm trying to look into it." So this was a Republican senator, James Lankford, introduced a bill that would make it so we could let in, I think it was 10,000 people a day, 5,000 people. It was some extremely high number of people a day. And if it went above that amount, then you could do an emergency shutdown stuff. But it was basically, we're going to have 2 million illegals every year. That, then it's a crisis. It was really bad. It was disgraceful that he brought it forward as a Republican option. And he's basically just given Democrats ammo ever since. The last few here, American Patriot 3531 says elections are not won by rigged debates. They are won by keeping the truth, outworking our opponents, and taking action. Action.
We're renaming Turning Point Action to Turning Point Action.
Heck yeah. And then a person I've never heard of named Mikey McCoy says, "Charlie, he donated $50. Charlie, how could Taylor vote for someone like Kamala when Trump is literally out there saving kittens? Poor Meredith's life now hangs in the balance." And isn't that true?
Is he implying that the Haitians will hang Meredith?
It says that was the allegation, that they were just kind of dangling from a tree branch, I think.
By the way, I'm glad President Trump brought up the pets thing. It's 100% true. The more data we get, it's true. We don't have evidence yet on dogs, but cats are a delicacy in Haitian culture. It's like escargot. No, it's a real thing, right, Jack? Cats are a delicacy in Haitian culture, and so
it's a
voodoo spirit animal.
They don't have like a separate thing, but yeah, it's traditionally they eat them on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Right.
And I've been going through and just finding old tweets of people in Haiti from 5 months ago, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, even 3 years ago in some cases, where they're just posting pictures of them cooking cats.
That's crazy.
We have actually a video. I want to play that. But yes, I mean, Blake, how predictable was it that he was going to bring up Springfield, Ohio?
I'm really happy we saw it. They're going to, I actually think they haven't flipped out about it that much yet. I think they may have realized, this could be dangerous, because I think we're going to hear more and more stuff out of this town. And if it's not the cats and dogs, it's going to be something else.
I totally agree. Two things here. They're doing focus groups everywhere. We have our eyes on them because I'm actually really interested in them. Number one, if this was a campaign, Kamala Harris's campaign, if they were confident, they would not have received the Taylor Swift debate, the endorsement on debate night. Their internals are not where they need to be. Number two, they would not be asking for another debate. Someone who is confident about where their campaign is and how tonight went, they need to dig themselves out of a hole. They are acting like a campaign in desperate measure. They recently just did events in New Hampshire and Minnesota. They have a lot of climbing up to do, right, Blake? And you don't all of a sudden, win a quote unquote, I won the debate, let's go do another. Who cares who won or lost? That's not important to me, okay? One side's going to say our side God. They're going to say that won. Okay, whatever. Meaning they need more juice, right, Blake? They didn't get what they wanted tonight.
What's most important is is like your psychological composure. What they needed, the biggest gain they're going to get from this is not voters. It's just that they can go to donors and say, like, things are all right, pony up some more money. Kamala Mentum is still okay, and maybe some of them will believe that.
Kamala Mentum,
on the same,
I like that.
For us, it's the most important thing.
What's up, chat?
You
How
don't
y'all
listen
doing
to people
tonight?
who scream at you
How'd
and
you guys
say,
think,
like,
feel about
Trump
the debate?
lost, oh my gosh. You don't. You just don't listen to them. Oh, wow, they lied a bunch in the debate. They had a bunch of rigged moderators. We're still going all out, maximum intensity. Sign up your friends, sign up your spouses, sign up your your kids, your legal voting age kids. We're not Democrats here, and you get out, get those ballots in. You win the high score race for pieces of paper put into the box.
That's it. It's whoever can get the most pieces of paper in a box in a short period of time. Ready, set, go. Jack, do you get the impression if Kamala wants another debate, forget the debate performance, I'm not interested in that. Taylor Swift endorsement, is this how a winning campaign acts?
Well, it's actually quite strange because it almost feels like there's something that they know something they're not telling us, right? So a winning campaign says we don't need to have another debate. If you feel like you've won, like you put the nail in the coffin, then you said, we'll give them another, you would dangle it out. You would say, we'll give them another debate if they deserve one. We'll give you another title shot if you deserve one. And again, I think they're realizing that when you get beyond the nuts and bolts of things and really look under the hood, that this is a country, again, that is frustrated, a country that is angry with the current status quo of things, that does want change, that does have the righteous indignation. And my friend Raheem Kassam was writing a piece of this, that the mood of the country is much closer to the mood that Donald Trump espoused on stage tonight. Not this sort of showy, flashy, oh, everything's going to be great, look at me and my scripted lines. No, this is a country where people are going around saying, you know what, I'm sick of the tens of thousands of Haitians running rampant in my town, and I want someone to get them out of here and all of these jobs to go to the people that have lived here all along. It's as simple as that.
Yes, and Andrew, I want to get in on just again how a campaign acts is more important than what a campaign says. They want another debate because they think tonight went well for them, and they know it's not yet enough, right, Blake? And while they think that tonight went well for them, which I'm not totally on board for, by the way, Ryan, did I not predict that CNN poll? I said the CNN poll is going to say around 65% of people thought Kamala won the debate. 63%, according to the CNN poll. It's all BS. By the way, the ones in 2020 are even worse.
Yeah, it was about, I think it was about 70% for Biden.
That's right. So but Blake, help me play devil's advocate. If Kamala was super happy with the current state that she's in,
why would she want another debate? She wouldn't want one.
Do you demand another debate, especially after Taylor Swift endorsement?
No.
That quickly?
I think the fact that Trump also says he wants another debate. You come out and of course you say, I want more debates.
Sure.
Because that's how you signal you don't think you lost, basically. And I think if you're nervous about it, later on you'll see maybe they'll try to glide their way out of it and fuss over the rules or something like that. But
like they tried to do with this one.
I think they've seen their internal numbers. We've heard a lot of talk from Mark Halpern, from other people that their internal numbers aren't as good as the public ones, and the public ones aren't that great right now. You have Nate Silver going around. They're citing Nate Silver. Prominent Democrats are stoking panic in their base. They're saying, he says it's really close. We're down in the Electoral College, and some of this is Democrats sort of respond well to panic. They freak out. They donate more money. They are a neurotic bunch of people in the best of times.
They wore masks.
And so, they're going to be all neurotic about this no matter what. But I think they are. I do think they're requesting another debate because I think they believe it will be useful to them. And I think part of it is awareness that this debate is really early. Way earlier than any of the debates were in 2016, for example, and I think 2020.
All right, chat. I thought it was great. I don't know about you guys. I thought it was a really good debate. It was pointless. It was just funny. I don't know. But on that note, I'm going to end it. I really appreciate you guys all stopping by and hanging out with me tonight. We will see you guys later. Have a great evening. Peace.